We are at the beginning of a world war connected to the Muslim world. There's the Sunni arm, which is led or headed by Qatar, and the Shiite arm, which is led by Iran.
Today we are joined by Yaron Alkalay, a Middle East expert and intelligence officer, a regular editor in our studio. Yaron, hello, welcome. What you're about to reveal here is nothing short of, well, Iranian sleeper cells waiting years to operate Iran's new strategy.
It's a certain kind of strategy, yes, after the 12-day war, which unfortunately hasn't ended, but they realize they're very, very exposed inside their own private homes, and they're still exposed. We see every day that someone anonymous explodes, someone anonymous blows something up, and someone anonymous gets blown up, and this war hasn't ended. But they understand that, strategically, in a war against Israel, also because of our truly amazing technological capabilities, all our intelligence agencies, whether military or not, they can't cope with them. That's why I think today they're changing their approach and starting to operate across their entire global network. I definitely think that in recent years the world has experienced a series of very significant crises. If we take the food crisis, the struggle with China, Russia, and Ukraine, there's no shortage. The problems in Africa. But I think today it can definitely be said that we are at the beginning of a world war. A world war that is connected to the Muslim world. This is a war with two arms, the Sunni arm headed by Qatar and the Shiite arm, which is led by Iran. Both arms are flush with money. The Iranians are poor, but when it comes to war, they find the money in all sorts of ways, including counterfeiting dollars. We'll probably talk about that in a bit. And this is a war of the people of the Islamic subculture against Western culture. A subculture is a culture. It's the absence of a culture of life. Life is cheap. Among Muslims, as we also saw on October 7th, and as we see today in full force, death is sacred, life is extremely cheap. The sanctity of death is much more important than the sanctity of life. And this leads us to the point where, essentially, they have become, I don't want to use a very extreme term, but let's go with a milder one, uncultured. And this puts the world in a very tough dilemma. In the early 1990s, I started lecturing about this, and in the early 2000s, after September 11th, together with a close friend, Dr. Tzvi Sada, and today we are here as well. I actually coined the term the white jihad right here, so that it would get out to countries where I always presented it, the nonviolent jihad, economic jihad, migration, takeover, settlement, harassment. And today we see the political landscape in countries around the world, how it is open to politicians who have emerged from within the immigrant communities.
So now they've received the order. What will they do?
So on the operational side, they're going to start pulling out the weapons. We've also talked in previous interviews about how this happens through the Iranian embassies. Through diplomatic mail, huge amounts of weapons, drugs, and money, some of it counterfeit, some real, are brought in, providing the foundation for these sleeper infrastructures. They're waiting for the day the order comes. Has that day, the day of the order, arrived? I see a lot of signs that it has. In recent years, I see a lot of connections being made. Or let's go back to one point before that. Iranian delegations around the world are divided into two parts. There's the diplomatic part, which is overseen by the government, the Iranian government, the Iranian Foreign Ministry, and then there are the embassies of the Revolutionary Guards. which are run by the Revolutionary Guards themselves. The real power in Iran lies with the Revolutionary Guards. Some of them stay in Iran and don't go abroad, while others travel, operate, and maintain those cells. Today, I see a stage where there is a tightening of the connections between those Revolutionary Guard cells, or rather, the Revolutionary Guards themselves, and their collaboration with local crime organizations. We see this in several places, but especially in Sweden. For the Iranians, Sweden has become a kind of launching base for all of Europe. There, they connected with two crime organizations led by two Kurds who were previously partners in the same organization. The larger organization is called, Foxtrot. It is currently led by Yaron Alkalay, who is of Kurdish origin and a Sunni. He is a very violent, extremely ruthless criminal who operated and established the mafia in Sweden and basically began his activities there. He began wandering around Europe. He was arrested, if I'm not mistaken, about a year ago in Turkey and was suddenly released and found himself in Iran. The Iranians, apparently to hide their connection with him, put him in detention. There's a phone call with his father where he talks about being detained, but says everything is fine. Today, he is in Tehran. Supposedly, allegedly. Yes, he got out of prison. So did his father. And he's sitting in Tehran, coordinating the activities of his organization, which is still active in Sweden. He is attributed with 2 or 3 recent attacks. 2 attacks in Sweden. One of them was throwing a grenade at the Israeli embassy. By the way, his connection to the Iranians came after the burning of Quran books that happened in Sweden. The Iranians took advantage of
Are his motives those of a criminal? Money, power, and being a fugitive.
Money he doesn't have.
An Iranian ideology.
It's terrible. The awakening and the connection happened following those 3 or 4 incidents where people burned Quran books in Sweden. What also brought them closer was his trade in weapons. Trade in weapons and drugs. So the Iranians connected with him through the arms trade and through explanations. And later, apparently, some feelings developed.
Iran is a major supplier of opium, right?
There are also videos where you see drug seizures that came from Iran and were caught by Foxtrot. So today he's sitting in Tehran and orchestrating the activities of his organizations, his soldiers, and there was also an attack in Brussels that he carried out. He has a sub-organization there that he controls, also in Belgium. He moved further south, from Northern Europe to Southern Europe, even reached Central Europe, and then there was a very serious conflict between him and someone named Ismail Abdu, who was also Kurdish, which led to Abdu leaving that organization and founding a new one in Sweden called Rumba. He too is connected to the Iranians. The connection, that is, for the Iranians, the more collaborators they have, the better it is for them. Every intelligence organization aims to build such a network. Abdu's infrastructure already existed as he partnered with Yaron Alkalay.
Look at the blow Iran took. They understand that Iran is an existential threat on the one hand. On the other hand, you're talking about criminal forces. Operating within the continent, here's a European interest, Interpol, and so on.
Let's connect this for a moment and consider that today, England, France, and Germany, the leading countries in Europe, are demanding that the Iranians stop their nuclear project and are threatening them by the end of August with the imposition of sanctions. So this leads to an Iranian awakening. That is, it gives them the motivation to try to save themselves and to threaten these countries with violent means.
And do these countries actually get nervous about threats? I mean, they're still sovereign countries.
Still sovereign countries. Listen, I think that over the years, in the Western world, there has been a tremendous, massive failure in everything related to Islam. How multiculturalism with people from a subculture who are coming to conquer you?
It's obvious you can see how the progressive European approach basically made them sleep on their feet, while those others grew stronger and set up there.
They were in a coma, like before surgery, and the operation is on its way to them. They got an anesthesia shot, or they injected themselves with anesthesia. They're asleep.
So let's talk. This Freud case is a significant point. It sounds like a big bombshell, and you say this information isn't exposed much, pretty much hidden. It's the issue of counterfeiting dollars.
Yeah, indeed, you are precisely the individual I am referring to, the very person I am addressing at this exact moment, without any shadow of a doubt or ambiguity whatsoever. And it is unequivocally clear that you are the intended recipient of this communication.
Say it's a very high-quality counterfeit too? It's
a counterfeit you just can't. Today, if you try in many places, for example, a $50 bill, many money changers won't exchange it. I was just in China, and they wouldn't agree to exchange a $50 bill for me. In Turkey, they don't exchange $150 bills at the money changers. And that's a result of counterfeiting. There are reports that they transferred 15 money printing machines for dollars to Hezbollah in Lebanon. The world today is flooded with massive amounts of counterfeit dollars. You just can't tell. They're identical, one-to-one. These bills were sent to the Americans, and they checked them, but they couldn't identify that they were counterfeit.
So basically, you're saying that economically and on a security level, they've planted many cells there that could rise up and act. Economically, this money could both topple economies and give them cash to operate further.
Look, it's not just about this. Let's go and turn to something else. We know that around the world, let's call it an epidemic of mosque construction on non-Muslim land. And look, I've checked in recent weeks, following all my monitoring of what the Iranians are doing. I checked how many Shia mosques there are, and in the United States today there are about 3,000, maybe a bit more, between 3,600 and 4,000 mosques. I checked how many are Sunni, and there are over 200 Shia mosques across the United States, including in secular states. California, for example, if I'm not mistaken, has 6 Shia mosques. I see that there's awareness. I see that maybe there's more understanding than there was before. Before, it was just lip service. Listen, Robert Malley, an envoy for 2 American presidents, was an Iranian agent. He comes from a family. His mother was Jewish. He's Jewish. He comes from a very radical, obsessive socialist family. His father was Egyptian, extremely radical, and he worked for the Iranians. He brought the youth network into the State Department. The youth network is part of those 35,000 students, right? Who were sent to the United States. They were sent around the world, some to the United States. They assimilated in the U.S. and reached very, very new positions. Important positions in the American security establishment.
What you're saying here needs to be echoed. I'm repeating it because it's crazy stuff. First, the deep infiltration. You're saying, this is information we've had for years, into the administration itself. An envoy of the administration is, for all intents and purposes, an Iranian agent.
And that's the point. This goes back to the Obama administration.
Yes, and the second thing, you're saying nuclear information, meaning they're taking knowledge from here. And we actually realize that the Muslims are very, very sophisticated. We already understood back in October that our condescension toward Muslim intelligence was arrogant and misplaced. They're basically schooling us, teaching us how to plant intelligence everywhere and how to create power brokers.
Apparently, we still have a lot to learn.